Good morning, afternoon, evening all. How are we all doing? Welcome back to Pastries, Pumps and Pondering episode 11. We made it past episode 11. Or made it past episode 10. That's pretty cool. I'll take that. This feels a little bit weird because I usually hold this microphone. But my Adobe Audition membership has run out. And quite frankly, I've got no signal, so I can't connect to renew it. So you're going to just get me speaking without a microphone, which I know you guys don't care about, but it makes me feel a little bit socially awkward. I'm not going to lie. Audio listeners obviously don't give a fuck. So the date is the 22nd of April. And if you are watching this, you can see it's fucking lovely. I believe it's about 18 degrees, which is delightful. Awesome. My favourite time of year, honestly, to a degree, where the sun is shining, but as you'll hear every Brit ever saying, it's the wind which gets you. The wind is nippy, but when you're in a car like mine with black interior, man, it's hot. So if you start seeing sweat drip off my forehead, just allow it, okay? Don't even comment, question, DM. Just ignore it, okay? I haven't done one of these episodes in about 4 weeks, and again, I am constantly trying to get more consistent at these. So bear with me, okay? I'm only human. I'm also trying to be a very, very fucking good coach alongside this, and that, quite frankly, takes priority. But half of you listening are probably clients. So, yeah, enjoy. So yeah, it's episode 11, and I've got a few topics to go through today. But obviously, I'm just going to do like a normal catch-up in myself. Of how stuff has been. So, in the last month, I have been ill about 2 times. I'm a little bit ill today, and I know exactly why. And that's because I haven't trained since not last Friday, but Friday before, because I twinged something in my trap. Like, I was doing a hack squat and I felt something like ping off the fucking collarbone, clavicle. Not clavicular, that was that fucking idiot. But it did mean that I didn't train for like 9 or 10 days, which doesn't sound like a lot. And I kind of was like, oh, I'm gonna just double check this like D-volume stuff is important when going back into a mesocycle. It most definitely is. I'll tell you that for a fact. I went and I did what I could on Monday because again the trap's still not where it is, but I managed to somewhat full send legs yesterday. And quite frankly, today I have developed some sort of immune response which is similar to that of when you are about to get ill and you're like sore everywhere and achy. So that's not good. Fucking creatinine levels are through the roof, mate. Yeah, so I've been a bit ill. Again, it's shit being ill, but I know a lot of people have been ill. And it is one of those things which does kind of tie into a topic of a little bit of burnout in regards to myself, because I honestly am the sort of person who I have quite a high ceiling for like work capacity, which is a blessing and a curse at the same time because it's kind of like I will work until my body tells me I shouldn't, and that usually is like being ill. And it's happened a few times, and again I know exactly when it is, and yeah, it happens, and it's something I'm working on within myself because I've realised something which was really interesting, and I was chatting to my therapist about this the other day, that I derive a lot of my self-worth and my value through my work and my work ethic more than anything, which is obviously not a bad place to be. It's really not. And again, it's one of those things where you're not jumping from camp A to camp B and then going, right, sweet, I'm burning out and I'm getting ill, so I'm not going to work at all. Well, that's one way to be a shit coach. No, so it's like just learning to kind of turn the volume down as and when I can and not be on the rev limiter of work 24/7, as much as I can be. And when I need to be, then I can be rev limiting all day. And I think that was the thing, is the first 4 months of this year have been good. They've been amazing. But I quite frankly was working 70-hour, 80-hour work weeks at some point. I was doing ridiculous ridiculous amounts of work. And whilst again that served its purpose in giving me a bit of a direction and a purpose at this point in my life, this last 4 or 5 months, I've definitely come out the other side of it. And again, doesn't mean that I'm going to be turning off work. That's not how life works. But it definitely means I'm going to be trying to be a little bit more sensible with my workload and how I kind of treat myself. So, yeah, very interesting topic, especially kind of threads into the fact that I haven't had, this is crazy, I haven't had a monster in 22 days, okay? And it's a little experiment I'm doing of caffeine intake, and I struggle with caffeine intake on the perspective of I do use it as a crutch a lot of the time, and I do think it's from an ADHD perspective. Plus, I just love the taste of a white monster. Like, why the fuck can't they make a decaf monster? I think that would be delicious. And the tricky thing there is I'm just sticking to one coffee a day, and I've been using caffeine. I say it like it's fucking like a drug. Well, it is a drug, but as kind of like a self-medicating stimulant because it works well with ADHD. And I definitely found my ceiling for work has come down with that. And when I'm not externally stimulated, the noises, like the internal dialogue in myself gets a lot louder. So yeah, like I've been doing that. It's been good. Like I felt a lot more peaceful, a lot more calm. Like not like an impending anxiety, which is quite good, I guess. Yeah. So the only other thing about me, which I really need to kind of go into, is yeah, a bit injured at the moment. So working through that trap, and I've actually just come back from my first ever solo trip to Barcelona, or as I may say whilst I was over there, Barcelona. Because like every other Brit in the world, I like to think I can speak fucking Spanish. But honestly, it was really, really insightful and cool. Like, I'd wanted to go on a solo trip for the last few years, and I just hadn't. And I was like, fuck it, I'm going to do it. And I was literally in bed, about to go to sleep. I was like, yeah, I'm going to look at flights. Unfortunately, I'm in a position to do that where I'm like, okay, like I can just book a flight. And I was like, okay, let's look at flights. And I did a Thursday to Sunday trip, 3 days of just pondering, wandering, and thinking. Very simple. I think I've really realistically completed Barcelona in 1 day because I did 45,000 steps. But I also made the plan not to kind of have like just an itinerary. I think it's very easy to do that, and I didn't want to do that. Like, I've often been a bit of an itinerary warrior when I go away, and it's not something I kind of wanted to do this time. So I didn't, and I just wandered. Like, there was a few parks which I didn't go to, but everyone was like, you need to go to them. And it's like, no, I'm not gonna. So I kind of just wandered, had some gelato, had a few espressos, and yeah, I then sat on the beach. And I've always labelled myself as somebody who can't lie on the beach. Like it's not my idea of fun, don't get me wrong. And it definitely comes from a place of burnout that I was able to for a few of the days whilst I was there. But it definitely made me switch off and kind of have a little bit of reflection of shit which is going on in my head and internal dialogue and all that jazz like we were speaking about before. So yeah, it was really good. I would recommend it to anybody, honestly. Barcelona and solo traveling. One thing I reckon I would do next time as a change would be I would probably stay in a hostel. Now, I've never stayed in a hostel in my life, and the thought of it scares me, which again, I don't think it's a bad thing. Of just like, right, well, if stuff scares you, do it. Like, it's probably something in that, and I'll probably do that next time. But it allowed me to speak to people whilst I was out there, meet people, chat to people, have these nice organic sort of micro connections, and it was pretty cool. It was pretty insightful, and it definitely made me think about things, like I said. And a few of those things I want to go into this episode because obviously I kind of set out a little bit of a new template for this podcast, which was going to be like kind of me as the first bit of like what I've been doing, what life has kind of brought to me in the last few weeks or in the last week if I've managed to get around to doing these weekly. And then like my just general thoughts as I have a little bit of a page on my notes of when I think about things. I'm gonna talk about them on the podcast, because I think the people who listen to this podcast would probably appreciate them. And then obviously just some stuff about the gym and kind of how I would have certain takes and certain things. So we're going to go into a little bit of the thoughts section, and one of them which I thought, which kind of ties in hand with another one, is, and it was a quote I heard on a podcast, which was really good. It was really good, and it states that it's very easy to become a hostage of your own former beliefs or opinions because we're stubborn. And it kind of ties in with that thing of, there was a great analogy on this podcast I was listening to, and it was like, if you had an apartment and you went into it, or you went into your apartment block and you walked into the wrong apartment, you can sit there and scream and be like, oh, this apartment's wrong. And that's, again, could be a friendship, it could be a relationship, it could be a behavior, it could be an approach, it could be a philosophy you live by. Again, it could be anything, and you can apply it to yourself in that sort of realm. And instead of sitting there and screaming, like going, oh, this is not my apartment, this is somebody else, I don't like the way the couch is, I don't like the way this is. Don't just stand in the apartment and go, oh, like, I don't like this. Walk out the fucking apartment. And I thought that was a really cool analogy. And it allows you to think and go, okay, well, even like I don't need to walk out of the apartment. This is my apartment, but I don't like where that sofa is anymore. I'm going to move it. I don't like the way kitchen's laid out. And again, these are all analogies and theories for little bits and bobs and crutches and things in your life which you might not like. And again, this is actually something I made an Instagram post about yesterday, about iteration-based thinking. And again, I think it's very easy to label things based on a time scale. So you've been doing something for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. But how many iterations of that actual approach, behavior, or stuff like that did you have? And it's like, for example, I'm trying to think of a relevant example in my life. Let's take the work thing. I very much in times in the last few years, and I still will. I think that's the beauty of it to a degree. Of it's like I'm just being more aware of it, which is positive. There'll be times where I take a lot of self-worth and self-esteem from my work ethic and how hard I can work. And that's not, again, like I said, a bad thing, but understanding that I can make iterations of that. Like, it doesn't have to be flat out on the gas 24/7, especially if that's not working or is actually making me ill at certain points. And I think it's just a great way to think. And I mean, I'm quite stubborn. Yeah, I'm pretty stubborn, so I think I sometimes have to have a little bit of an internal conflict with myself about these things. And again, it's so human dependent of, again, whoever's listening to this, you will have your own little bits and bobs as well. But I guess that kind of leads on to a good analogy, which kind of represents that. And it was really fucking cool. It must be up there with my kind of like favorite paradox as such. Like, I love the Mexican fisherman paradox. If you don't know, look it up, it's great. And it kind of fits into these pools, and it's interesting how different things resonate with you at different points in your life. And this one was, I don't know what it doesn't really have a name as such. Let's call it the military bench paradox or some shit like that. But basically, my friend Matt told me it because I was talking to him about some of these things, and it goes like this. It goes, there's a military camp, and in rotation, 2 of the guards are always told to stand in front of this bench. And throughout the years, it's always been a thing. It's just been part of the process. When the guards rotate, 2 people always go stand in front of the bench. And a new admiral, a new sergeant came in, and he was like, why are 2 people stood in front of that bench? Like, I don't understand why. That might be like a waste of 2 people. We could put them somewhere else more valuable. And the sergeant asked the previous sergeants, he asked everybody around the camp, and nobody could figure out why 2 people were stood in front of this bench. Until the janitor, who used to be a soldier, on the army base comes in one day and he goes, "Oh, I know why." And everyone's gasped, shocked, horror. And I'm like, "Well, why?" And he went, "Well, about 50 years ago, they painted that bench, and the admiral at the time asked two people to stand in front of it whilst the paint dried so nobody sat on it." And I think that's a really good story because, again, I can resonate well with that in many ways. And it's the kind of short way of saying that is we often develop compensatory defense mechanisms at certain points in our lives which go past their expiry date. And being able to identify that when a behavior is way past its expiry date, it needs to be conscious, if you know what I mean. And I mean, I've got lots of them. Again, there's some things I don't want to share on here, people. But again, understanding that there's going to be times in my life where I do bury myself with work. There's going to be times where I don't, and I recognize that. And yeah, I thought that was a really cool story. And it's like, it makes you really sit there and question what what benches are you fucking standing in front of? What benches are not wet anymore? And the paint's dried. You don't need to stand in front of that with this behavior. And I think that's really cool. And it really stuck with me. So first of all, thank you for that, Matt. Everyone, give a little round of applause to Matt because that was a really fucking cool little analogy. So yeah, I think that ties in very well with that sort of theme of being a hostage of your former opinions and being able to iterate in different areas of your life. And that was definitely something which came up for me whilst I was away, of being able to change different opinions, and opinions which I may have even voiced on here when I first started this podcast, which is going to be so interesting because hopefully this podcast has many years to come and I'll be able to go back to these first episodes and be like, wow, I've changed a lot, you know what I mean, and for the better. Yeah, I think that's really cool. I would love to get a studio one day of doing this. I mean, hopefully eventually when I move out, I'm going to try and create a little corner, which is very much like a podcast studio corner, which would be very fucking cool. So yeah, people, I thought that was really cool. Anyway, I'm going to stop procrastinating. There's another topic I want to go into, which is a gym topic because I think it's very relevant at the moment, and it's causing a lot of like uproar within the fitness industry, and it's the concept that bodybuilding can give you PTSD, and the emphasis is on can. And I want to share my opinion on here because I know there's been a lot of sort of back and forth, and you get a lot of people in the industry who are quite opinionated, and there's a lot of very nuanced things. Bodybuilding is very nuanced, okay, and that's the thing which I take away from it. So again, I'm not a professional on this. I don't have a great deep understanding on PTSD as somebody who doesn't have PTSD, but I think it kind of obviously goes into the thing of PTSD, which stands for post traumatic stress disorder. And I think it would be ignorant to sit there and say a bodybuilding prep, if it's not managed well, and again, especially if there's anabolics involved, can be very stressful. And it depends on the threshold of that individual internally as to whether it causes significant stress to the point of clinical diagnosis of PTSD. And that's my take on it, because I think there's nuance. Again, for some people, a prep is a walk in the fucking park, and that they are more aligned with the bodybuilding lifestyle. And for some people, they'll find it a lot harder. But it may be one of their lifelong goals. And understanding the variance between those two people, that one person is going to be internally stressed a lot more. There's going to be greater kind of physiological, psychological, emotional stress upon the body and the systems. And I think it'd be ignorant to sit there and say that people don't have that. And I guess the kind of point from there is, well, just don't bodybuild then. I think I've seen a lot of people say that. But that's not, if you've got that opinion, that's not your choice. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's taking away autonomy from the individual, because who are you to tell somebody that they shouldn't bodybuild just because of an internal genetic response to a prolonged calorie deficit and high amounts of physiological expenditure, that they can't do something? They still can. And like, as somebody who has been through very stressful preps before, to the point where my food has got down to low as 700 calories per day, like, do you not think that's stressful psychologically and physiologically? No, it is. And again, I don't think I got PTSD from that, but it would be ignorant to not be so open-minded to the point where, considering that somebody who maybe was not inclined in the way I am, or not informed, or not managed the way I was, and also with the addition of anabolics, which we know has a massive effect on the brain as it is, I think it would be ignorant to say that people couldn't cross into the border of clinical PTSD. But yeah, like, again, that's just my opinion. That's just my opinion. And I know a lot of people have been going back and forth, and people are allowed their opinions. I generally think there's a lot of nuance in bodybuilding as it is, let alone on this topic, but in so many different things: rep ranges, training session length, training split. Should you train dumbbells and barbells, or should you train D handles and fucking machines? Like, again, you've got to be open to it all, and you've got to understand the internal mechanics and apply it for the lens of real world application. That's what bodybuilding is. And the beauty of the thing is it's like, it's kind of like a little bit like F1. You can build the fastest car, you can build the most aerodynamic car, the lightest car, the most powerful car, but if a driver inside of it doesn't like the way it feels, it's not going to go as fast as it could. And when you apply that, I mean, you could apply it outside the gym, but I think it applies very well in the gym scenario. So yeah, that's my opinion on the whole PTSD thing in bodybuilding, because I know it's a little bit relevant, would be a good term to say so, at least at the moment. So yeah, I mean, that's really all I wanted to go in from a gym perspective. And yeah, like, I'm missing at the gym at the moment. Like, I'm loving the gym, but I'm missing it because, again, like I said, I've had a bit of a period of inconsistency, and we're all going to get those periods of inconsistency within the gym when you're injured or you train really hard. Because that's what I did my trap in doing. Was I was on like an RPE fucking 20 million on the hack squat, and my trap just decided to give out. Like, I felt a good ping from, like I said, my clavicle, and it was very annoying. It's very annoying. But when you train as hard as you do, and that's the way I enjoy training, again, being a driver in a Formula 1 car, almost like that, it's understanding that, okay, like, that's important to me. I mean, the doctor's advice was ice it. I was like, great. Cheers. So, yeah, like, it's one of those things where we're at the moment, we're coasting along. We're sitting about 88 kilos. Not in my prime at the moment in regards to training consistency, but we have these fluctuations of the seasons, especially in this sport of bodybuilding. So yeah, I think that's where we're going to leave it, people. I haven't got anything more relevant to talk about, and I don't want to sit here and try and force some stuff. I really enjoyed these episodes when I can ponder on topics and sit here and chat with you guys about your thoughts, and hopefully make you reflect and chat about these things within yourself, or within your friendship group, or within your family, or with your partner. And I think it's a really good thing. So I love you all very much. If you enjoyed the episode, do let me know. Do I need to? Well, if you're interested in online coaching, let me know. And yeah, we'll go from there, people. Code Drew at Hardbody, code Drew 10 at Full War Sports, code Drew at Gympin. Let's crack on from there. Have yourself a beautiful day, wherever you are. Win it to a degree. Don't burn yourself out too much, and have a beautiful day, people. Awesome. Thank you for listening.